Hey, Hearties. Welcome to Heart to Heart. We are back today to talk about episode 2 of season 9, and this one was titled Out Like a Lamb. I'm Jesly, and I am a special correspondent with the Hearties admins.
And I'm Marg, and I'm an admin, and I'm here from, where am I? Southern California, San Diego.
And this is Dawn Bateman. I'm the moderator at the Facebook page, and I'm in Wiley, Texas.
Awesome. And we have our showrunner today, John Tinker. It really is so great getting to meet you virtually.
It's great to meet you, Jesly. And again, thank you so much for being so positive and such a great influence. And I'm coming to you live from a chicken house in North Georgia.
How's the odor?
Oh, it's bad.
Yeah. Okay, so the first week we had Buckingham Palace. The second week was like a bunker 20,000 leagues under the sea. And today is a chicken coop.
A man has to make a living, you know, cleaning out chicken houses. That is a tough way to make a living.
Well, you seem to make your living doing very fine work because we had another phenomenal episode and we want to jump right into it because these episodes are jam-packed, John. I mean, there's like so much to talk about. So Madeline Hope Rudy of Calera, Alabama wants to know what your favorite scene was last night.
Oh, that's easy. I thought that Chris McNally and Kevin McGarry were a hoot in the ice cream scene. You know, I thought it was, and it was, character revelatory because Chris is trying his best to go and see Nathan and do him a solid, bring him some ice cream and tell him he's glad he's okay. And then the two of them just kind of banter a bit. And they're off to an interesting start. I think that, you know, is a new relationship that's developing and it's going to develop throughout the season. And I hope you're all excited to watch how it evolves.
Well, yeah, hysterical. And somehow the stash just kind of added to the comic part of it, you know, with that tiny little spoon, just like eating that like a little mouse.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
It was funny. It was. Really
they love working
Exactly.
together too. They're really good pals.
Yeah, and you know, Chris playing, of course, the more sophisticated, you know, sitting there. I don't know. It was just it was a great contrast, and the dialogue was. It was hysterical. So
two guys zetsing each other. Yeah, I liked it. They did great.
It was really fun.
Yeah, I love that too. It was hilarious. And Kevin with the little spoon.
Little wooden spoon.
Yeah, just so funny. And also, like, we have a new mayor.
Yes, you do.
Pamela Smith of Drexel, North Carolina wants to know your thought process behind choosing Mayor Mike Hickam.
Well, we all got into the room and knocked around who we thought should become mayor. And I think that choosing Hickam provided for the greatest opportunity for growth in each of the three characters. It gave Mike something to do. It gives Lee a new trajectory. And Bill, he had already been mayor, so it also sends him off slightly in a different way. Though I do have to admit, and he was a great sport about it, but Kevin called me up. He said, "I thought I was going to be mayor." When he got the script, and because we had gone around about it, and he was great. And then I'm excited to see what the reaction will be this season. Well, not only for Bill and not only for Mike Hickam, but for Lee's journey as well. Lee takes a left, as you know. I don't want to jump ahead in the questions, but Rosemary's inviting him on board was a sincere and thoughtful request on her part.
Right. Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised. Like, I remember my face. I was like, what? Like, Hickam? That's so awesome. I did not expect that.
You know, there's hardly any show. I mean, God bless him. Hallmark is giving a lot of terrific sneak peeks, but there's very little that's left. So when we can surprise, if in fact you were surprised, that's great. That's great.
Definitely. Love that. And so it was an episode with a lot of focus on couples. But tell us a little bit more about Fiona and Hickam. Is this a love match, a friendship? But
it's a solid friendship, and it always was meant to be. And the two really like each other. And again, I don't want to jump ahead of things, but they'll have their own camaraderie this season. And should we go a 10th season, it's really going to open up wide in terms of their friendship and their professional relationship, which will be hitting some bumps. But for now, it remains just kind of a really nice guy-girl, woman-man relationship.
Yeah, I love that.
And we have so many great couples on the show, whether they're friends or whether they're husband and wife or they're courting. We have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to couples like that.
Yeah, I just loved them dodging their responsibilities together. It was really, there was just so much comedy last night. And I know that Sue Buskirk Peacher from Clarksburg, Ohio, also said she just loved the sprinkle of the comic sort of throughout. And whether it was Fiona and Mike, if we've talked about, and then of course Lucas and Nathan, and then Elizabeth trying to coax those teachable moments out of Henry in front of the classroom. I mean, it just was, even the scene with Bill and Lee where Hickam is telling him he won and trying to talk to them, and they're just like playing their cards. And I mean, it was a great, I just think all of us are at this point in the life of the pandemic, as we've said on the Facebook page, it's like we're just like one cereal slurp away from kind of our last nerve. And I just think that comedy is so helpful right now. Talk to us about.
It's helpful. I think it is. And we may have all been leaning into that a bit more because as we were writing it, we were really heading into the throes of the pandemic, and there was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of sadness and worry. And so I think we leaned into it even harder. And there are a lot of those moments coming up this season. And there's always a juxtaposition of, putting those dramatic moments that Henry Gowan so often provides you, placing him over into a comedic circumstance in a framework. And they all do it so well. So
yeah, we haven't seen Henry, at a kind of at a loss for words in front of a classroom of children. I mean,
right.
That was a great moment. And Aaron just really drew it out, and it was painfully awkward.
Well, they can do it, like I said, and you all know. So it's fun to watch, fun to write, fun to watch.
Absolutely. So going to those sort of a lot of verbal sparring, I think some of the Hardys, it's that awkwardness. You're breaking the tension between Elizabeth and Nathan and Elizabeth and Lucas and Nathan with these little barbs. And there was one last night where Nathan says, oh, that Newton is a good judge of character, and it's like a little bit of a burn. And of course we see that Newton really took to Mei Sou. So that was just such a cool, for all the horse lovers. And I know we have a lot of Hardys that are big horse lovers. Tell us about that scene.
Well, it was always intended for Amanda, for Mei Sou to come in and sue the horse. One thing that was dramatically different, and through editing and some ADR, some dialogue replacement, we changed up that scene a bit in the after it was shot. It was written and shot where she actually sang to the horse. She actually sang to Newton.
Oh, wow.
And she tries one song and he doesn't like it very much. And then she tries a sort of patriotic song and she said, well, of course, you're a Mounties horse. And he responds, and through great. No fault, absolutely no fault of Amanda's nor the director's, it didn't work. And so we trimmed it and changed it around, but I'm sort of sorry that no one got to see what a good job she did with it. But We just thought it would bear up a little better if we trimmed it and cut the scene down. It seemed to lag. And again, that goes back to the writing and there are always three chances to tell a story in television: on the page and on the stage, and then in the editing room. And we had a chance to do that in the editing room for that scene.
Yeah, I think
And
the Hardys, they were.
someone remarked that they thought that was a different horse, and I don't
Yes.
believe so.
Is that
when
the
you get
case?
Jamie Payton on here, you'll have to ask him. I thought it was the
Okay.
same.
Okay, yes, Hardys were debating fiercely whether it was the same horse because the mane and the forelock were
They
different.
may be right, because when we write these things, we approach Jamie Payton and ask him whether or not they can. Well, there's a little thing coming later. We had to ask all kinds of little tricks and fun to be had with them. But if they can't do it, they can't do it. So
Right.
they may have had another horse that knew how to do that. I don't know.
Right. You have a body double for the horse as well.
Well, at least we didn't have two people in a costume.
True. That could be where you're headed next, John. Chicken.
You never
food.
know.
We thought about it.
Funny.
Chelsea,
So
back to you.
thinking about
Oh, Dawn,
Rosemary and Lee, they are doing like a master class with the little things that works for a relationship. They're so good. And that acceptance speech of thanking Rosemary was so impactful. But now we know that they're going to work together. So it's not just the location, it's the business. So how will that work? And the other question I have is Lee going to do the mill as well?
Well, we got a little glimpse of how it's going to work or not with the establishing shot in the first episode, where it's Coulter Lumber and it's the Valley Voice. Rosemary Coulter, managing editor.
Yeah, that was subtle.
And she does move in there, and that's part of the fun to be had. And I think it was, oh, good goodness, it was last season. No, I'm going to give it away. It was last season in my head, but it's coming up this season. Okay, there will be problems not only with the location, but there'll be other problems with the two of them working together. And as I said, it was a genuine offer for Rosemary to make to Lee, and thinking that she had seen some new, a little bit of a new side of Lee, having seen him run and watched him run for mayor, and saw that side of him come out, and how caring and concerned he was about the community itself. And while she's always known that, he had to put on a different face, and so now that she's seen that, she thinks he may have something to offer with the paper. And so now he'll do that and split his time, which will cause a bit of a problem when it comes to the lumber.
Mm-mm.
There are other folks around there to help him carry the load, as it were. And so he's going to hopefully rely on that. But the two of them, Kevin and Pascal, are just fabulous. And just when you think you've sort of seen it all, they continue to spin it and play it kind of just a little bit different. And just as their characters' relationship evolves, their acting relationship seems to evolve too. So that's fun to watch.
Yeah. Oh, they're great. They're great. So, well, going through the idea of the theme of couples, we're talking about, and it's loosely, between Elizabeth and Henry. They have a special bond.
Yes.
But well, we know Henry is kind of complicated. So when Abigail and Henry, we know that they were exchanging letters, and we know that Henry went to see her.
Yes.
And now we know that they met. So what's happened there?
Well, we this doesn't directly answer your question. We were hoping to shoot a little something, but we just practically couldn't make it happen. So in our minds, I think in all of the writers' minds, we have a different notion of what happened when the two of them met. Here's what all the writers agree on. It was too brief for Henry, for sure, and that Abigail wasn't able to break away, at least not at that moment. I do think in some fashion, should we go season 10, we need to address the message that that Jack gave Abigail, that somehow that's going to have to be conveyed in a
Right.
fulfilling, satisfying way.
Yeah.
That's to be a bridge driven off when we get to it, if we should get picked up. And just and now, rather than just writing to Abigail, Elizabeth sort of has become a go-between between the two of them. And it's really lovely. They have a very special relationship, and she's almost stepped in a bit, for me anyway, as a surrogate Abigail. But it's clear to all of us, because of the writing that's preceded that episode and the acting, that no one, I don't think anyone, could ever take Abigail's place. So we're hoping to address that soon.
Interesting.
I'm so glad you said that, because I do think we've seen many sort of take some of the baking and the advice giving and the visiting Henry in the jail, et cetera, some of that piece of Abigail, and we certainly see Elizabeth doing it too, but that Abigail's Cafe sign presumably is not going anywhere, and that the presence of Abigail is still very much there.
Oh, here's a tease. One of the signs, a sign does come down in Hope Valley this year.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Gee, could it be the
I
cafe?
spoke too soon.
The intrigue. The intrigue. That's
These
awesome.
signs are a big one this season. We got the signs everywhere. All
That's
right.
right.
Yeah. Wow. So at one point in this episode, we find some of the characters walking to the church.
Yes.
And they're in different stages. Like Minnie and Joseph are, struggling with the way Cooper's been acting and his defiance and maybe not wanting to go to church. And Lucas attending Sunday service, to be with Elizabeth and little Jack and adding that to his routine. And also Rosemary and Lee, who maybe they've resigned to the fact that, the fact of being parents.
Yeah.
And also Henry, that scene where he's just walking up to the church, and I was like, he's gonna go in, but then he turns around and doesn't go in. So there's a lot to unpack here.
My wife thought he was going to go in. My wife thought, oh, that's
really?
great.
Wow.
Turned around and left.
Yeah.
You don't want to do all setup, but there's so much setup to be done for the season that's going to be coming down the pike, and I feel like that the first two episodes sort of in a way were setting up a lot of stuff that's coming along, and again, going back to COVID and where we were at the time we wrote these episodes, there was a sense of a fracture when it came to community and family and things like that, and we wanted to see them coming together. And Joseph addresses that. He says, the reason we come to church in part is to be together, and
Right.
and talking about that and all these disparate elements, including Abigail, no, not Abigail, sorry, Angela and
Robert
riding on the bike. Will something develop there, or is it just two friends and a bike? And where are the Coulters? Where are Elizabeth and Lucas? It's a time to catch up with everyone, to see where they are and to see where they might be going, and just to take the temperature and check in with them. And I like those scenes. It was intentionally a very different ending from last week, where you sort of were jarred by the impact of a car and a horse. This was meant to be much different, and hopefully send people on their way in a soothing, comforting fashion.
Yeah. I actually love the fact that it ended at church, and I love those scenes where everybody is at church, and love seeing Joseph there and giving the message, and then they ended singing that song. It was so great. I loved it.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. You're always so positive, Jesly, so thank you.
I think one Hardy said she hoped that the windows were open so that some of the message could maybe
Oh,
waft out.
love
Maybe,
I love that.
yeah, maybe Henry got some of the spirit anyway.
Well, he's got a lot more to go through this season, so
Mm.
stay tuned.
Okay, so let's turn our attention to next week because it looks like it's going to be very exciting with Elizabeth's book coming out. It's hit the market. And what is the name? It's a single mom on the frontier, right?
Yes.
Single mom on the frontier. Everyone's reading it.
Thank
we
you,
can
Mark.
see everyone's, rapt attention. But it does seem that Nathan has kind of an aversion. I don't know. Maybe he's not a big reader. Oh no, that's not right. Because we know that he did read. We know he likes to read. So tell us about that. And of course, then we have this moment where in the sneak preview where we see that Elizabeth has gotten a letter from her editor, Lucas's mother, and she's been given the Excalibur, which is this like little this editor's pencil that's worn down to a nub from making edits in her manuscript. So tell us about what's to come with all of that.
Well, it is fun, and the book and how the town receives it, of course, it depends upon folks all coming from their personal point of view and how it resonates with them, and whether there are these other experiences the writers of the TV shows always have to draw on, and we're not the only ones, but when you're writing television, you're drawing from your own experience, as with most other things when you're working, and your family more often than not will miss seeing themselves in your creation, and they'll often find themselves nowhere close to what you intended for them to see themselves. And so, that will be a part of a problem, that maybe folks are just looking at the wrong characters in this book and seeing themselves, or not, or maybe the characters aren't even based on anyone in town. And the story is about how the book is received, but it's also a lot to do with how Elizabeth receives the book. And that's key to this, and how Lucas will be able to possibly help her with the reception of it. I don't think it's going to be all roses, but in true Hope Valley fashion, everyone does turn out and they support her in true Hope Valley fashion. Well, let me see what else we have. We have that. What else do we have?
Well, that's just funny to think about, everybody interpreting and picking which characters they think they are like, and maybe turning on Elizabeth because of it. That's a great setup. I'm excited for that.
It's really fun, and there's just a lot going on. I think the episode, I don't know that to us, I don't know that they feel like we've packed any more into it, but if folks do feel that and they don't feel overwhelmed, then I guess that's a good thing. All I know is that personally, whenever I'm writing, I never feel as though I have enough pages. I always want to see more. I want to write more. And well, I guess the only way to satisfy that is to continue having season after season. So hopefully that's where we'll be going.
Well, I just love hearing from more of the ensemble characters and having more of their storylines exposed. So I think you're doing that very deftly. And that's sort of the trend in TV today, is that there's a lot more packed into a narrative and moves very quickly.
They're all the actors are so capable, and clearly Elizabeth is at the hub, but all those other orbiting characters are so they're so rich, and even though we're in the 9th season of a show, there hasn't been a lot of exploration for some of them, so that's even more fun. And then again, folks who've been around like Lee and Rosemary, as I said, they continue to surprise us, not only in what they do, but how those two actors play their parts. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Wow.
Very cool.
I'm so looking forward to it. I can't wait to see, what's to come for all these characters. So thank you, John, for being with us. And I also want to thank you, Hardys, for joining us today. And remember that we have to keep watching. The fun continues this Sunday at 8 on the Hallmark channel. And also remember to tweet with us, join in on the fun. And remember to use the hashtag Hardys whenever you tweet.